Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of July 21st to the 27th of 2025. All right, so this week we start a new lunar cycle on Thursday. We have a new moon in Sidereal Cancer. So it's all about a new lunar cycle, about connecting more to our feelings, our emotions, our past perhaps, connecting to the more softer elements of life and creating those perhaps boundaries or elements of security that can help us do that. So as we approach Thursday, we are ending the current cycle. This was a very Gemini cycle, which dealt a lot with the more practical, communicative, and sometimes social elements of life, which of course will still continue as we do have Jupiter expanding that and soon to be Venus in here. But in terms of the lunar cycle, we are certainly closing that out as we approach Thursday. So the energies are dying down. We're getting to the lowest energy of the lunar month, the lowest being on Thursday, and then we will see what kind of new seeds are being planted, what kind of new intentions are great to develop as we go through the new month. So this week we do have a square between feminine Venus and masculine Mars. That'll be on Wednesday leading up to the new moon. There could be a bit of a clash here collectively in regards to these elements fundamentally within ourselves. And so it's a great week to integrate these two elements, the receptive and the active elements of ourself. And in this way, it does become very constructive. The new moon will be trining up to the Saturn and Neptune conjunction. In fact, the sun will trine them exact on Thursday. So there's a lot of support here for what has really been a sneak peek into early next year. Early next year, we have a lot of new beginnings collectively, with the planet of Saturn being the more builder, conjoining up to spiritual Neptune, the planet of what's important on a soul level. So we've been talking a lot about implementing things that are more soul aligned, building things that are more good for our mental health and spiritual health. And there's a very supportive element towards working towards that this week. All right, and then on Friday, the sun is opposite Pluto. There could be some deep things that could be very empowering and transformative. And then over Sunday, Mars does go into Virgo for the coming months. And so when it comes to our proactive side, we'll likely notice a shift probably next week in regards to the more improvement and getting into the details of things, work, service, all that nitty gritty energy of Virgo. All right, so let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here's the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first here with Monday, July 21st. And as you can see here, we are using the visible sky on this channel, which is very different from mainstream astrology. If you're noticing the sign placements are different, like maybe you're expecting this new moon to be in Leo, for example, definitely check out that link down below for more information on using the visible sky, called True Sidereal Astrology. And I do have an announcement to make. We have recently updated the True Sidereal boundaries to be standardized. We're using both the IAU and Vedic systems now, making it much more universal and standardized. So if you're part of the newsletter, there's been a newsletter blast about that. But if you do go to the calculator on the website at masteringthezodiac.com, there's a link down below for that calculator as well. You will see the note about that, and you will see the article explaining the exact new standardized system. So this is how we calculate the boundaries. We're getting as scientific, exact, standardized as possible. All that information is there. There's not a whole lot of changes to what was already there. Anything within 3 degrees should have already been considered a blend of both signs anyways, and the system, the new system, the update here is within that. But for those that want to get more precise, or those that may notice that you might be closer to a cusp that you weren't as close to before, or farther from a cusp you thought you were closer to before, there has been some slight changes there within a few degrees between the constellations. So again, there's a link to the calculator down below. On the calculator page, there is a notification of this, as well as an article going into now the standardized version of what we call the midpoint system, which is finding the midpoints between the constellations. Okay, so here we have the sky here. We have the new moon approaching here on Thursday. So as we go through this early part of the week, the main theme here is closing things out, finishing and finalizing things from the previous lunar cycle. Mercury is, of course, still retrograde, so it is a week to be flexible, to be adaptive, and to experiment with things. This is actually a recent retrograde. Mercury went retrograde last weekend, and so things are, or towards the end of last week, so things are just slowly going through a reworking, but very good to be flexible, to be adaptive right now, have a plan A, B, C, and D, experiment really. And in this way, we can actually learn a lot this week. We can actually get a lot done this week, believe it or not, because the retrograde is actually very good for going back and doing things that hadn't been done before, maybe going back and editing things, redoing things. All this is absolutely fantastic during the Mercury retrograde there. Okay, but yeah, and in terms of the placements, we still have Venus and Taurus. So it's still a great week to be connecting to the more earthy and grounded elements of life. And perhaps in those relationships as well, we can notice a little bit more of a stable, slower, resourceful kind of energy that we can connect to. And that can be connected to either life or in our relationships. Mars finishing Leo this week, but in Leo all week nonetheless, is all about having a more assertive and direct energy with our self-expression. Still a great week for that. Self-expression, connecting to who and what we love. Mars will be over the South Node, as you can see here this week, so there could be some themes around our assertive side that might be going through a letting go process. Typically, the South Node is about clearing old karma, clearing old ways, or in very often unhealthy ways of doing certain things. Mars being the more masculine, fiery, assertive energy, it's good to allow some of this clearing to happen there. With the South Node, there can also be gifts and natural things, though. So while on one hand, the more conscious elements of Mars, of that assertive side, will be cleared, there is a lot of spiritual or unconscious elements of that can really come through very beneficially. Our South Node also represents the roots of our life, our past life, and our gifts even from past life. And so these gifts, these things that can come in more receptively, more from life, more automatically, without thinking about it, being conscious, but without trying to do it, without putting effort into it, actually the assertive and direct energies can actually flow very nicely. So all in all with this, just being mindful is really the name of the game with the South Node, being aware of any old patterns around assertiveness, proactivity, initiative that are being cleared, and then perhaps noticing some new healthier ones, or some ones that may come in from our past, or way we've done things in the past, but now we can approach a little differently. So great to be mindful of that fiery energy. And that's really the case anyways, because this week, this whole early part of the week, we do have Venus, the feminine archetype, squaring up to that fiery Mars masculine archetype. So as we're approaching, this is all early week, but as we're approaching Wednesday, there is perhaps a clash between these two elements, the receptive and the active, the more other-oriented versus the self-oriented. These elements, again, very good to be mindful of, as all squares do tend towards over or under extremes of the energies. But if we can be, again, more mindful and really integrate them constructively, then it's a fantastic week for this. So some things there is to be, yes, aware of our needs, who we are, what we want, to express them consciously, intentionally, but at the same time also being tactful, receptive, aware of others' needs, this more feminine quality, let's say the receiving qualities of life as well. And of course, vice versa too, even though Mars is definitely the one more challenged here this week, and Mars is definitely the one that's most likely to go to the over-under extremes, mainly because of the South Node. Still, nonetheless, it's important to incorporate it the other way. When it does come to our relationships, when it does come to our enjoyments of life, yes, having a healthy element of that assertive drive, fiery side, but again, intentionally with a constructive mindset. All right, so that's as we approach Wednesday there. The moon will be in Taurus on Monday, finishing up the weekend of that Taurus sort of energy where Venus is. So Sunday could be a particularly good day for a bit of that groundingness, taking things one step at a time and stopping to smell the roses, as they say in life. Once we get to Monday and all up until Thursday's new moon, we will have the moon in Gemini. This is a great time to be connecting to the more curious, inquisitive, and practical elements that we've already been involved with this whole previous lunar cycle, right? Because the last new moon was in Gemini, that's what we're finishing up. So a good few days there to, again, fundamentally wrap things up, close things out. Again, connect to that Gemini side in a way that's flexible and adaptive with Mercury retrograde. And most importantly, just letting the energies die down. Maybe complete things, finalize things, maybe even do some clearing or some finalizations as we approach Thursday can be absolutely fantastic. But again, I'll likely be in the theme there of Gemini, which is the practical, mental, and communicative spheres of life. All right, so that's Wednesday approaching the new moon. That's square between Venus and Mars. Great to integrate. We have a minor sextile with Uranus and the Sun. Nothing major here, but just to mention as a side note, maybe some things to be open-minded about, to mix some things up, maybe mix up the routine a little bit, get outside of our comfort zone and experiment can be a little bit supportive. There can be perhaps some opportunities for some of us there, but mostly we'll be feeling that square with Venus, Mars. And then Thursday is the new moon. So reset here, new beginning. It's great to set intentions for the month, but also to be receptive to what life wants us to cultivate this new lunar month. So listening, seeing what does arise. What is our new perspective? We often do gain a fresh new perspective on life during new moon time periods. And this is very likely to be the themes we'll be working with for the next roughly 29 days. And as you can see here, the new moon will be trining up to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. In fact, very, very closely, very exactly. The sun will be trining it exactly on Thursday as well. And this is this conjunction we've been talking a lot about. So Saturn, the builder, the constructor, is very, very close to Neptune, the spiritual planet, the planet that is about doing what's not only soul-fulfilling, but good for our mental health and spiritual health. And these two being very close. So they're going to go exactly conjunct early next year, late February, and that'll get activated in March. But they've been very close right now, right before they both went retrograde, and they are both retrograde right now. So it is a process here. We just got a little bit of a sneak peek into what these new beginnings are. But generally speaking, it is a new beginning for all of us collectively to have a life that is more soul-fulfilling, is good for mental health, spiritual health, maybe speaks to that inner self. And at the same time, when it does come to the more physical elements that Saturn represents, maybe our achievements in life, maybe our careers, our productive lives, our public life, this stuff is getting spiritualized. So there can be some uncertainty there and some working with the ethers there, if you will, especially with this conjunction in Pisces. But that's again all for that soul-fulfillment there, and to both build a life that's soul-fulfilling, and at the same time have more soul fulfillment in our productive life and in our achievement or career-oriented lives, generally speaking as well. Of course, this conjunction's happening in a very specific area for all of us, and you can always check that out using that calculator down below. Whatever's at the beginning, whatever house you have at the beginning of Pisces like this, will tell you exactly where the conjunction is. But anyways, been talking a lot about this. It's definitely a new beginning. It's definitely on that level between the physical and the spiritual, and the structural and the soul-guided. But that's very supportive this really whole lunar month because of the new moon. So anytime we have an activation with the new moon, we usually feel it for the whole month, but it's very strong on Thursday there, okay? So probably noticing either some support, maybe feeling a bit grounded, maybe feeling like we can see the bigger picture, maybe seeing things flowing a little bit, maybe some new intentions or new seeds being planted in order to facilitate the so-called new productive life or new soul-fulfilling life. And this is going to be some seeds that will likely develop for this lunar cycle. Okay, so that's Thursday, most important part of the week there with the new beginning. But again, lowest energy and just slowly building momentum as we come out of that. The sun will be opposite up to Pluto with all this as well. The new moon will be opposite Pluto. So as we get into Friday, just good for a little bit of non-attachment, maybe particularly involving the interpersonal or relational energies. Oppositions often deal with energy outside of ourselves, almost mirrored to us, and that's very often in one-on-one interactions. And we see, of course, the more interpersonal stuff at play this week with the Venus square Mars. So there's likely to be some challenges, let's say, generally speaking, when it comes between us and other. The opposition to Pluto could be speaking to that. But in this case, just generally speaking, oppositions to me aren't particularly challenging. I've noticed they're actually more neutral, and they actually hold a frequency more of a conjunction, which is more of in this case, a status check. And I would say it's a really good time to do a status check from over the past 6 months when it comes to really having non-attachment to life, right? I think fundamentally that's what Pluto wants us to do, to be more non-attached to things in life, to recognize where we're perhaps giving our power away to things, people, situations, whatever it might be. That's, we are depending our happiness on, so many things in life. We make our happiness dependent on these things, but these things are outside of our control, right? If it's outside of ourselves in any ways, it's outside of our control. So, it's kind of obviously easier said than done, but kind of a silly thing to see how much of our, well-being, happiness, and all this that comes from within, really, we give to external things. But anyways, Pluto helps us be aware of where we're giving our power away, helps us reclaim our power, and helps us become more non-attached to usually these external things in life. And this is, I think, going to be a very positive step in the right direction with that. So just a status check with, the attachments, the deeper things, deeper values in life is all just very good. And I think just naturally there'll be some nice shifts as part of this new moon to help us become more empowered, more connected to what truly matters in life, and just more non-attached. So that's going to be going into the weekend there. This is where the moon will be shifting into Leo over the weekend. Late Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Could be a good weekend for some of the Leo energies of play, self-expression, maybe creativity, things that are really about love and passion and self-expression. Could be as simple as having some fun. Could be just expressing ourselves a little bit more. Could be a little comedic, fun-loving, creative even. But connecting to the heart and connecting to the things and people that we love in life is just great over the weekend. But again, just slowly building momentum. And that's with really Mars finishing Leo, where he's going to be already there and what the moon's going to activate. But once we do get to really late Sunday and going into next week, I'm really just mentioning this as a prelude to next week, really. But late Sunday, Mars does get closer to Virgo. And this starts the multi-month process of Virgo. So with specifically Mars. And so again, Mars is that assertive side, that masculine side that we all have. And here going from the expressive qualities where he's been for about the past couple months plus, going into more of the refinement, perfection-oriented, detail-oriented, methodology, creating more structure in our life, more systems, and doing things that are striving towards a sense of improvement or perfection, right? So when it does come to our goals, our needs, how we're asserting ourselves, we're likely going to start to feel a little bit more of this earthy, so a little of that analytical, structural, improvement-oriented approach, and this can be great to develop in intentional ways. But we'll talk more about that next week as Mars will continue that transit for many weeks there. All right, everyone. So that is the week in a nutshell. Most importantly is that we have the ending of the current lunar month this week and new seeds being planted with the new moon on Thursday. It's going to be in Sidereal Cancer, which is about creating a safe and secure environment for ourselves and others. Cancer the crab. It's all about the shell, right? Creating security, creating safety, caring, nurturing, protecting for ourselves and others, but so that we can connect to the softer elements of life, connect more to our feelings, emotions, the past, who and what's important to us personally, right? All this more intrinsic stuff in life. So great to do this. Great to see any new beginnings, and just being receptive, as it'll really be the lowest energy of the cycle and where the seeds are just being planted. Mercury is, of course, retrograde this week. So as a reminder, just generally good to be flexible, having that plan A, B, C, and D, but going back, redoing, reworking, rethinking things is actually very supportive at this time. During the new moon, we've got that square with Venus and Mars, a little bit of a clash there between the feminine and masculine that we can integrate and actually becomes very constructive when we do. These are two sides of the same coin. They're really about the same thing. Venus wants to attract, Mars wants to pursue. And so how can we do both intentionally. This is all actually supported here with the trine up to Saturn and Neptune. For the bigger picture sense, I would say it's a great week for long-term plans and goals, especially if it's about things we've been recently wanting to build in our life, especially if it's for more soul health or mental health. Or vice versa, just putting more work into our mental health and spiritual health in general. But anyways, good support there from both the builder of Saturn and the spiritual elements of Neptune. And then lastly here, the sun opposite up to Pluto, giving us a bit of depth and deeper awareness to things that we can integrate into our lives. All right, everyone, so have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for the live stream. We do go live here every Sunday at 1:15 p.m. Eastern time, covering the weekly energies, but of course, everything that the community is asking, wants to be involved with, and of course, the community is sharing how they're experiencing this energy as well. So it's a great opportunity to connect with other like-minded individuals, to the true sidereal community, and so we do host that here every Sunday. So that'll be just a few hours after this upload. There's a link down in the YouTube channel for that. If you're watching this from the newsletter, there's a link in the newsletter for that. But hope to see you there on YouTube for the live stream here in just a few hours. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great week. See you next time. Bye-bye.